Well, good morning and welcome to the Real Estate Heavyweights Podcast, Friday edition. Last week was a great week because I got both episodes out exactly when I said I was going to. So I am trying to do that, pull the curtain back a little bit. We record on Wednesday mornings. We try to get a couple episodes in and then I edit. And so we're trying to come to you Friday and Tuesday. Today's episode is more of the market update. That's the overview of DFW, the news that's going on, sort of an update of my life as far as real estate goes and Tavis's life as far as real estate goes. And you may ask, who's Tavis? Well, Tavis Westbrook is a good friend, mentor, a guy I've bought a couple of properties from, and he joins us now. And what's going on, Tavis? Good morning.
Good morning, Ashton. Hey, I'm doing well this week, man. This is an exciting week, and you know it's awesome that we're doing this. I can't believe that this is
week 21.
Now, yeah, the 21st episode.
21.
The Real
That's pretty
Estate
great.
Heavyweight Podcast.
We're
not bad.
We're on our way to 1,000. I mean, geez, Louise, like just steamrolling towards 1,000. Episode 1,000. We'll have a great old party. But no,
it was
21 episodes. It's pretty crazy.
It was funny. Somebody was talking to me about it the other day, and they were hanging out with me, and they happened to look at it, I guess, pull it up on their phone. They're like, holy crap, you've got 18 episodes already? Like, I'm on like number 3, like, when does this all happen? You're doing 2 a week? I'm like, yeah, we're doing 2 a week. So, I mean, thanks to Ashton for spearheading this thing, getting this thing going. But, I think it's great. And, we're getting some good feedback. So if you guys would just share your feedback with us, let us know if there's anything that we need to change or do differently, or some interviews that you guys would like to hear, or some different topics that you guys would like us to touch on. Happy to do that. So
for sure,
exciting stuff.
Yeah, if you haven't, check out the episode list. We went through a whole series. It ended up being 7 episodes of us doing a deep dive called it Real Estate Heavyweights University, where we're talking about flipping, very in depth. And then we once a week come to you with these episodes where we're just kind of doing a little bit of a take on the news and all that stuff. So you can see how the market is progressing in DFW. And so to that end, why don't we go ahead and do a little bit of a market update? So the market is changing a little bit. We do this every week, so sometimes it feels like it's not changing. But, to be honest with you, right now, looking at the entire MLS for the Dallas area, which goes over to Abilene and Shreveport and all that randomness that we've covered before, there's actually more homes on the market now than there have been almost all year. But the number of pending sales is at a very near annual low. And so there is a disparity there. And so when you have a lot more supply and seemingly lower demand, lower things happen, lower number of things actually closing and pending, that means that the days on market is starting to creep up. And so we are dang near close to 30 days on market. It's been around the 26-7 at times, and it takes a little bit of time, but it's going up. And so what might happen is, and a lot of people are talking about next year, the Fed has indicated heavily that they're going to try to do things to possibly bring the mortgage rates back down. They don't have a direct impact on the mortgage rates, but they have an impact on the financial system that trickles down to the mortgage rates. And so if the mortgage rates start to slide down some, you better bet that the flood of people wanting to get into the market, change out those houses that they are tired of for the last 2 or 3 years, and feel a little bit more comfortable about trading in their 2.5% to 3% loans in for maybe like a 6% loan by the end of next year, something like that, could be more realistic. So I think the activity will increase. What do you think, Tavis?
Yeah, no, I'm hearing chatter from other agents right now. Actually, a lot of people over the last week saying that they're seeing a spike actually in demand and things moving around a little bit. And that could just be, the December rush, right? People trying to get stuff done by the end of the year. And, they're just trying to kind of clean up their plate or, set up their goals for the new year and just try to get things, rounded out for the end of the year going into the new year, right? Like I want to buy something new or something new came up, so we need to get our home sold. And, so we're starting to see some of that a little bit. I think it's still, it's something that we talk about over and over again. I mean, I think it just, you got to take a professional outlook on supply and demand and know what you're doing when you sell the property. I think it's, I was talking to, um, a seller this week on a traditional deal that I'm taking on. It's actually family related to me. I've talked about it before, but it's an estate that was my aunt and uncle's property, and we're getting ready to tee it up and get it on the market. And we've got to sell this property as is, but we can't sell it low enough to where it makes sense for an investor. So I need to sell it to, a family that's willing to take on a home that needs some work. But it needs some work on like exterior stuff, right? So it may or may not be a lender issue. We'll kind of decide to, cross that road when we get to it. But I told them, it actually looks much better with everything gone, right? So they had an estate sale, everything's out of there. And, this is a family or this is, a home that's in my family. So I'm used to this home, right? For the last 20 years. So it's kind of weird seeing it vacant, but, it actually like, it looks big, right? Like I walked in it the other day and like the master suite is huge. And I'm like, holy cow, cause they had years of furniture and collections and stuff. And it always felt like home to me, but it, it looks much better vacant. And now it's like, hey, let's go ahead and get this thing cleaned up instead of selling it just as is. And it looks like an estate sale. Let's get it. Let's at least just get it cleaned, professionally cleaned, get the carpets steam cleaned because carpets are in good shape. They're not that old, and stage it. Spend the money to stage it, even though we've got like a deck issue in the back that the engineer says is not structurally safe to walk on. My thought is let's make it look good on pictures. Let's price it right where it's got a yield in it to make up for these repairs. It's not an investor yield, but it's a homeowner yield. And
Sure.
and let's go that way with it. So anyways, we're working on the steps to kind of get it on the market. But I mean, I feel pretty good about it just from that strategy. And it's not something that the normal agent would do. I don't see many people that would probably recommend staging it, but because it's still got the original like wood stained family room, right? The wood stained panels. And
Okay.
of course that looks dated, but with a professional stager who knows what they're doing, they're going to make it look good. And so you take those things out of the equation, and if the inside is move-in ready, then somebody can, fall in love with the inside of the home and the location and the price point, and then say, hey, all right, we got some things to tackle on the exterior of the home. Not a big deal. So that's
Yeah.
kind of
And
that's my strategy.
yeah, I mean, and in this market, talking about the numbers and, when the supply goes up and days on market go up, you have to make more of an effort to present your house. You have to do your job to entice people with the pictures, and you have to, if nothing else, you just want them to walk in the door. You want them to get that one step closer to come into the door, picture themselves living there, and spend some time there. And so if you can do that by really good pictures, or if you can do that by staging, and then they can actually envision what their living room placement should be, that's probably what you need to do. When you have a lot of competition, you have to see it that way. It's not just as easy as clicking a lot of real estate agents, I think they got used to that for a few years. You can kind of mail it in on some of the fundamentals as far as pictures and description and all that sort of thing, especially pricing, you're not paying attention, doing your research. But now you have to be on point. There's not a lot of stuff, there's not a lot of volume right now. There's still things moving, but the things that are moving are the ones that are done really well, so do yourself a favor in this type of market and really mind your P's and Q's and do the fundamentals. And if you do that, you can move a house. And so,
Well, and one of the biggest questions I ask people when they say their house isn't selling, or an agent says, yeah, I've got this listing and it hasn't sold yet, how many showings have you had? Yeah, that's usually a big indicator, right? So we go back to that, is what are you doing to get people in the door, and how many showings have you had? And we've kind of always used the measuring stick of 10 showings, one offer. And you should have 10 showings and you should get one offer out of that ratio. So
yeah,
if your home's
that's a
been
great,
sitting, if
you've
your home's
got
been
a good
sitting
insight.
for a few
Okay, go.
weeks or a month or 2 months and you've had 5 showings, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It's time to fix something, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Our
and I
MLS
think
actually tracks that. And I just looked it up as you were talking. The average, it says shows to pending. So these are official shows. These aren't open houses. But right now, number is 9. So you nailed it. Yeah.
There you go.
A few months ago, I think when we first started the podcast, I looked at it and it was 12. But right now, the average number of official showings is 9 to get a sale. And so if you're not getting, like you said, if you're not getting that volume in the door, something is off. You've got to do your part to get people in the door. And then at that point, it's just a numbers game. And for me, from someone who represents a seller recently, it's like, look, we got a couple showings. It's just a process. We just got to get a few more people in door, So, yeah, you know the market, Tavis. Who knew? You spent that many years in a market, and you can just rattle off statistics without even really knowing it. So that's pretty awesome. So,
well,
today's a little bit different. We do have some news, but today's news is not necessarily local or national news. It is news concerning Ashton and Tavis's real estate business. There's just been there's a ton happening this week specifically. If every week was like this for me, I would do this full time because I've just had a lot of activity. And so we're just going to update you on what's going on with our businesses. And Tavis has quite the story to get into. He's been busy in probably not ways he wanted to be busy this week. But for me, I'm a realtor. And so I had a listing, Josh and Krista, we mentioned, and we listed their house. It got a contract. We went through the option period, and I believe it might have ended late last week. And now we're pending, and it's going really, really well. And we have some of our repair addendum items we had one repair addendum item that they had 28 points actually that they came to the table with that they wanted us to do. And I had just been through this same situation with my flip over in Richardson where they wanted 21 specific things done, but I had been on the market a little while and I kind of felt obligated to take care of some of it. And it was a mistake because now you just have this honeydew list that you've got to rush through and you've got to do it, but you got to do it right. You got to prove that you did it right. And it was just really stressful for 2 weeks trying to get that house closed. And so I knew going into this one that I'm like, I will really try to strongly advise against doing honeydew things unless it was just crazy easy. So they came to the table with 28 different things that they wanted. Theirs is a 1978 house. Of course, there's stuff that's a little bit off. And so we actually landed on a concession and then repairing one plumbing item. And so we've been getting contractors over there and trying to work through that. And actually, it turns out that the plumbing issue is sort of verging on a design thing, because if we fix the plumbing, it's a shower. If we fix the plumbing problem, we're going to actually have to replace some tile. And my statement to the agent was like, we could technically fix this, but it's probably not going to match super great. And I would imagine that the new buyer would, at some point in the near future, just want to redo this bathroom. It's not an updated bathroom. So if you're going to go through the process of fixing this pan and some tile, wouldn't she rather just do it on her own? So we're working towards actually another addendum to maybe just do that as a concession.
Credit.
So,
there you go.
Yeah, do a credit there at the end. And then that way we can be done. The other interesting thing about that one is actually they originally started out as financing and they're going all cash. So
was it a shower pan issue? Was that
we haven't
the determined factor?
We didn't do the specific test yet, but just the anecdotal stuff, sort of eliminating a few other things. It's most certainly a pan issue. There's some cracked grout, and when you run the shower, when the inspector ran the shower, that's when they found some issues. We haven't been able to replicate it. That's the only question mark. So we could do the plumbing where we balloon off the drain and try to fill the pan there. That's how you would normally do it. But I think we're just trying to work towards, let's just get this over with. And we got a quote for what it would take to fix. And hey, let's just propose that. So that's been fun working through that this week. The other part of that is, Josh and Krista, they're not buying another house. They're going to be renting a house. And so helping them look at rentals all over town has been really eye-opening, man. It's like, from an investor standpoint, you walk into some of these rentals and the interpretation of what's rent ready for a really similar, because they have their budget. Okay, let's look at this price point. And so you're going to all these different houses in a pretty small radius and it's crazy. You know, one house you walk in, it's like, man, I don't know that they were aware that we were going to be here. And, you know, it's like,
Especially if it's tenant occupied. Those
well,
are the
none of
worst,
them,
right?
yeah, none of them have been tenant occupied yet, but
Okay.
these are rent ready. Like, hey, you can move in.
Okay.
And, you know, some of like one yesterday was like old aluminum windows, pretty dilapidated, not dilapidated, but like they had just slapped the cheapest hospital white paint on everything. And, you know, just done the bare minimum to get it ready for the next person. And then you go into some other ones and, you know, I would be happy to live there. It's like, man, this place is great, you know, but then of course you're trying to rush around and get an application in. And so many of those, it's already done. And it's like, look, the people that are trying to squeeze every drop of, you know, lemonade out of this one little bitty lemon, trying to get top market dollars for this rental, it just sits there. I mean, we've seen a couple that have been on the market for 60 days. And after a while, you're like, I kind of get it. And then you have a few that have been on for 2 or 3 days. And it's just like, they just know the system. And when a rental is sitting empty, it's just not making you money. And so you kind of just, you know, do your part to get it exactly like what you've been talking about. You do your part to get it ready for the market. You know who's walking through, and you just want to get it off the books, sign somebody up for another year and move on. So it's really been kind of eye-opening to see how some people go about it. You know,
in 12-month rentals, 1 month vacancy is huge.
Oh, it killed your year.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. I don't know what your price point is that you're looking at, but I'm imagining you're somewhere in the $2,000 to $2,400 a month range.
Yeah, around 25, kind of 24, 26, somewhere in there. You know, if we could find a good one in 24, that'd be perfect. You know,
I mean, if your cash flow is only $200, $300 a month, that's $2,400 to $3,000 a year. You know, and you miss 1 month. Right now, mind you, your mortgage payment shouldn't be that high, but still, 1 month loss of vacancy it changes your numbers. So
plus, if you spent any money on the changeover, you know, you're putting a little bit of money in there, and then it sits for a month, and then it sits for 2 months. And then what's ironic is a lot of them try to go around the realtor and the MLS early on so they don't have to pay a fee. And then I think they probably come to the conclusion like, well, I guess we have to do that. And so now not only has it sat for a month or two, now they're having to actually account for a fee, 40% of the rent or whatever it's going to be, to go towards an agent. And so it just kind of snowballs, I think. But then yesterday we went into one professionally managed. They had their own kind of custom lockbox, their own booking system. They don't use realtors. I mean, it is smooth, and It was a great house. They had done a really nice job with it, just all the right features, and it felt safe and clean. Like, it was great. But I'm going back to George, I pictured like, this is a hedge fund rental. This is one that is by the numbers, just designed to make money, and they know how to turn them and get them back on, off the books, on, get a rent going. And so I'm confident the last one we went through yesterday was a hedge fund house, because it was really, really smooth. So that's been a lot of fun. And then the other part for me is finishing up the flip over at Mapleton. I listed on Friday night, last episode, we talked, Tavis, he Dr. Phil'd me, and he said, you're going to speak it into existence, that you're going to list this house. And yes, you're going to list this house. And so, yes, it was a few hours late, but we did list that Friday night. We actually put it down as coming soon for about 6 hours. And in that period of time, it was coming soon. An agent reached out. They had been watching the neighborhood. She had clients that travel a lot. And she said, look, they're in town. They like the house in theory with the pictures. They love the neighborhood. Can we come look at it? First thing in the morning on Saturday, they went to go look at it. By noon, I had an offer, a really good offer. And we had several other showings that day. And we just decided, let's call it, we're going to accept the offer. So 7 o'clock on Saturday, we accepted, and we've been working that since. So super exciting. It went exactly how you'd want it to go. And we're in the option period. So I don't want to just completely, assume it's going to go perfectly, but they've been a very reasonable group to work with so far. And their ask, although detailed, is not ridiculous. Turns out when your idiot plumbers leave cast iron under the house, and it's not my current plumber, it's my old
Well,
plumber.
to be fair, it wasn't. They left the trash, so they replaced the cast iron to PVC, but
Yes.
they were lazy enough to not take the cast iron
The
out
pipes
from
out.
underneath the crawl space.
Correct.
So really, I can't say that's going to hurt anything, but it looks
No.
like crap. And you
It
got
looks
an
like
inspector
crap.
crawling around that's like, why is all this
Yes.
debris and trash under the home?
Well, and honestly, if nothing else, when they go to sell that house in 5 years, someone else is going to do an inspection. They're going to get under the house and say, what the heck? There's all this trash here. And
Yeah.
they're going to go through the same thing. So
At least
we
it's
need to
evident
clean
that
it
you
out.
changed the cast iron.
Yeah. Hey, they can't argue that. Yeah. So Saturday we got a really, really good offer. And, it was a good enough number for us to just decide, look, let's just call it and accept it. And now we're in the option period. It's gone really, really well. They've been really reasonable, and they have some asks. There's several asks, but they're at least doable. And turns out when your idiot plumbers leave cast iron underneath the house from their repair, from whenever they changed everything over to PVC and they just left the pipes on the ground, that will come up on an inspection. There's trash there, and so we're going to clean all that up. We're going to try to get it nice, because I'm sure if they sold the house in the future, that's going to show up on an inspection report. So overall, it has been a pretty good process. And so I don't want to celebrate too much yet because option period still has a day, but it's moving in the right direction. So we're optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah. So Ashton, one of the cool things I wanted to say, and I appreciate you sending me the offer just to look at it on Saturday. We were traveling, but I took a peek at it, and there's something to say about agents that pay attention to the details, representing their client, and put together a really good and solid offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was very complete. And there's nothing more that bugs me when I sell a flip. I have a lot of documentation that's in the transaction desk. And we kind of, we put instructions to that in private remarks on MLS that say, make sure you would include all of these documents with your offer, right? And make sure, and I usually tell the agents that too, if they're going to send me an offer, like, hey, go to the transaction desk. There's a lot of documents. Make sure your buyer initials every page. And that's just to make sure that nobody can say later that they didn't see a document, right? And a lot of agents don't really understand that. They kind of see it and they look at seller's disclosure and they're like, oh, you just added additional information here for me to look at. No, have your buyer sign it. Like, have your buyer initial it included in the packet. And it's just, again, being transparent, just giving that documentation. And there's nothing more than ever like somebody down the road is like, I think you gave me those documents when I closed, but I can't find them. It's so much easier just to go look in your original packet or look in your DocuSign packet, right, when you sign the contract. And in that might be obviously the seller's disclosure, but might be engineer reports. In your case, it was, you have the remodel disclosure, basically says you're buying a remodeled property. It's not brand new. Do your due diligence. Don't use an existing inspection report. All these different things just to ensure that they understand what they're getting and they understand your role in the situation. But anyways, first off, that offer was complete with all those documentation, with all that documentation. It was an over asking price offer. So they influenced it there.
Good option period.
Good option period. And all the other terms made a lot of sense, right? It was very clean, very, very easy. And it was thorough. Even page 9 or page 10 was filled out properly. That drives me nuts too, right? It's just more of the detail work, especially if you get multiple offers. It's easy for me to kind of disregard the offers that are incomplete, or I've got to go back and send a 1-page email of all of the mistakes that they made on a general contract that need to change. It's frustrating. So in that, it was very clean, very simple. Very easy to negotiate a few terms on your contract, but overall, I mean, the nuts and bolts were there.
Yeah.
And they had a request in there for you to respond by 5 o'clock that day. So
Hmm.
what that showed me is they put their best foot forward. They're representing their client. They know that you've got a superior product. Their buyer loved it. They didn't try to play games. They're like, hey, what's going to make this guy ink our deal today? We know that it just went live. We know that it's just on the market. They were there at 9 o'clock in the morning. They had an offer to you by 12.
Hmm.
Like, that says a lot, right?
Hmm.
So I'm like, you agents out there representing buyers, learn from this. I mean, you can win offers, you can win bids if you pay attention to these kind of details and you put together a really attractive offer that makes a lot of sense. And then, over COVID and the last couple of years with multiple offers asking for a response time of 5 o'clock that same day, it was rare if anyone's actually going to pay attention to it or
Hmm.
really give you the time of day. But in today's market, okay, yeah, I mean, we'll play the game. We understand, right? Like, because it would be different if they wrote the offer under asking or just wrote it right at your asking price, or something like that. It would be a little different to
Push you around
respond
a little
that
bit.
way. But you
Yeah.
may still pick up the phone and go, hey, I'll entertain your offer, but just to let you know, like, I've got showings all day today. I've got an open house. You know, I'm trying to get the most out of this thing I can, right?
Yeah.
It would
Right.
be a little different, but they put their best foot forward and
Yeah.
wrote a very attractive offer. So I know it
Yeah.
was a little awkward for you because you're like, man, first showing, first offer. This is
Yeah.
weird signing this deal,
Yeah,
but
but I knew they wanted it. They knew what they were looking for. They knew they wanted it. I knew that if we could just get the details worked out, I had a really really good feeling that they were going to want to close the deal. And that at the end of the day, that's what you want.
that's
Give or
exactly
take
what you want.
$5,000 here and there. It's like, what's going to give me the best opportunity to move on from this pretty quickly. And I didn't get the feeling that they were going to just come back in and hammer me on the request. So it's all worked out. It definitely could have gone the other way. They could have just gone over asking, and then during the option period, hammered me on a bunch of stuff trying to get the price back down. But kudos again to them for that. And to say thank you for that, I'm going to do everything I can to try to address all the
Yeah.
stuff I can without making a huge stink. That being said, is it's still a business, and I'm doing
Well,
the best
and
I
and
can.
one of the
So
things that they did, just so you guys are listening too, they wrote it with an appraisal waiver also,
mm-hmm.
and actually waived the value completely. So, that's something we saw a lot through COVID, and through the highlight of the market. Probably don't see that as much lately, but that was another serious thing. Like, we're serious about this price. We're waiving contingencies. That this is something that we're serious about doing. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that was great. Like I said, it was a great offer not to just go ahead and ink the deal and pull the
yep,
trigger and move forward. And again, time is money. You've talked about that several times on this deal.
mm-hmm.
Every day is costing you X amount of dollars. I think you figured out exactly what it is per day. So,
Yep,
again, it doesn't mean that you give it away. You still want to make a profit on this thing if you can, and you want to make it all make sense. But it
yeah,
sounds like, it's a very professional agent. They're working through it. They're doing their due diligence. There's a few things that they found. For instance, the plumbing underneath the home, the old plumbing, the debris. But, you and I talked about that and said, hey, has anyone been under the house? Because there's a
mm-hmm.
good chance that
Yeah,
this is what you're going to find.
yeah. Turns out when you're not watching
Most
guys, they
trades
leave their
don't
stuff
like to
there.
clean up their own trash. I
Yeah,
don't know what it is about that. It drives me absolutely bonkers,
yeah,
especially plumbers. Plumbers are probably one of the worst. I
yeah.
mean, it's just clean up the trash,
Stinking
dude.
plumbers. Yeah.
It's
Well,
more frustrating to me when, on average, I spend a minimum, typically, even on a tier one easy flip, minimum is about $1,500 I'm going to spend in trash haul,
yeah.
meaning somebody's picking up the trash, taking it to the dump.
Yeah,
That's
they're not having
minimal.
to take it away. It's not. They have to walk it to the garage or the
Yeah,
backyard. I mean,
just
that's all
clean
we're
up,
asking.
sweep up, put it in the
Uh,
damn trash pile,
yeah.
and
Yep.
don't leave it under the damn house. Now you're going to spend $500 for somebody to crawl around another home and pull
Yep.
it out and then haul the trash off. Like, come
Yep.
on, man.
Yep. So little details you learn, and it's like, look, guys, I need you to come back and figure this out. That's going to save you, $500, $600 on the back end, and it all adds up. I've had them bump up closing 5 days. That's going to save me probably $600. So,
Yeah.
you learn little ways to save here and there, but Speaking of pet peeves and really ruining your day, our friend Tavis Westbrook has had quite a week, and he can't go into a lot of details. So because unfortunately, when lawyers start to get involved in things, typically, they need you to go ahead and do your part and not ruin their fun and put a lot of stuff out there for other people to grab onto. But Tavis is always doing deals. He's always talking to people, trying to sign paperwork and get things moved through the pipeline. And so, why don't you take us through kind of the high level of maybe how the process should go and how the process went, and kind of give us just the basics of why your week kind of went a little south for a few days.
Yeah, I think I'm a big advocate of. Excuse me. I'm a big advocate of ethics, transparency, and integrity. Right, just doing the right thing. And we had a property that the numbers didn't make a lot of sense originally. Well, the original offer that I made was countered, and basically the counter gave us the opportunity to look at the wholesale side versus the flip side of it. So we looked at this property, and this lead actually came from a sphere contact of mine that was an agent, and let them know, hey, we're going to wholesale this property, and that's probably the best strategy, and here's how this is going to work, and here's the numbers. Anyways, we get all the way down to the 11th hour, the day before closing, and the end buyer that's supposed to perform, the end buyer, the end investor, doesn't perform, and basically says that they didn't have the capital, they bought another property, and therefore wasn't able to perform. So in that, basically they're in default. Earnest monies go back to the parties involved. It goes back to the interim buyer, that has interest in the purchase of the property, and then the person that's in contract, would then refund the earnest money back to the seller. So, anyways, that's kind of the way it went. So we just said, hey, here's the situation. Here's what happened. I picked up the phone, called the agent, said, this is unfortunate. This deal fell apart, yada, yada. It's unfortunate, but these things happen. And so, everyone's a little disappointed, obviously a little frustrated. And then we talked about another scenario that might work, where I could be back in as the principal buyer and buy the property to flip. And so we had that conversation. We negotiated terms, and kind of changed the strategy up again, and had a verbal agreement. Said, okay, let's go forward. Well, within about 72 hours of that happening, and shame on me because it wasn't quick enough. I was traveling, and wasn't quick enough of getting a new contract over and executed. The end buyer decided to kind of circumvent everybody and went
The original
around.
end buyer, the guy
The original end buyer was on the wholesale end buyer investor, decided to go around everybody and get a hold of the seller directly, and kind of make up a story, and basically tried to go direct and cut everybody out. And we can't get into it too deep, but essentially that's a no-no. They knew exactly what they were doing. They tried to kind of play dumb. They made the seller kind of feel sorry for them, and it took a lot of work on my side to be transparent with the seller, be transparent with the referring agent, and just kind of explain exactly what happened and what the terms were and where it was to really try to get this thing back on track. So
Yep.
It was a lot of work. It was just a lot of integrity to kind of explain what the situation was. But these things happen. They happen more than often, and that's one of the risks that you have when you decide to wholesale a property. The unfortunate part is if you are a buyer and you're buying a property that is, provided by a wholesaler, you're paying a convenience for that, right? Like that's part of the understanding, but you get these end buyers that get greedy, that look at it and go, well, I'm not happy with with the interim buyer making money on this deal. It's the way it works. Any kind of wholesale business out there, right? Whether it's, a wholesaling, that the people you buy groceries for, that, that the grocery store buys things from a wholesaler before it goes to the retail shelf. As an end buyer, wants to go buy groceries, you could go past you could bypass the grocery store and go directly to the supplier, for instance, or the distributor, but you would have to buy a massive amount of volume, and you could do it, but it would take a lot of work to be able to do that, to buy it at a lesser price, right? So therefore you pay a retail price that has a markup on it, that, the middleman makes money. Just like in any business, if you go into clothing businesses, manufacturing businesses, you name it, that's how it works,
Well, and
right?
wholesalers are they're getting paid to go out and kick the bushes and try to get stuff to fly up and go try to figure out they're doing a lot of the hard work. And a little plug for our interview coming up this next Tuesday, Mark Fuller, who has a great system for finding properties. He's made a living sending out mailers and trying to find the end seller, the seller that's distressed that needs to sell. And he spends a lot of money and a lot of time sending out letters, and he's consistent for years on end, putting this system together to try to find people that want to sell. Now he keeps a lot of them and he does his own flips, but he's wholesaled in the past because just sometimes it just doesn't work out to where this is, something that you need in the moment. But he puts all that work in, and there's a lot of individuals and companies who put massive amounts of effort to go find these people, and then they market it to their buyers list. And there's guys like me who, I've purchased from New Western before, and New Western has thousands of buyers on their list, but New Western is out there, they're kicking the bushes and trying to see what flies up and trying to look under rocks to say, hey, do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? Do you want to sell? And when they find somebody, they market it to their buyers list. And so, yeah, when you try to cut out that middle person, it's not, of course it ruins the day of anyone involved, but especially if you're dealing with an individual wholesaler, like that could really, really mess them up, and they can't, probably can't pursue legal action and all that stuff. So it's just how the system works,
It's in the agreements, right? Like it's in the agreements not to do this. And I mean, again, it should just be a known fact is you don't do this. That if you're buying from a supplier, that's a wholesale deal, that, the wholesaler is going to make money, but the convenience is they're giving you a deal that's wrapped up with a bow around it.
Yep.
That is bought at the right price. That's a solid deal. There's not going to be a lot of back and forth because the deal's already contracted with a seller. So that part's already secured. So when you say, hey, I want to buy this deal, it's a solid deal. I mean, Ashton, Mapleton, you bought from me, it's like I had the deals locked up with the seller at a certain price. I made a small fee on it, selling it to you, but you knew that it was solid with the seller. There was no monkey games. It was just a matter of you getting your numbers together and being able to perform on your side. And now you've got the opportunity. You got the house, right? And you didn't have to spend, $10,000 a month and mail outs, to get that lead, mind
or
you,
10 years building up relationships with agents that bring you deals. It's like there's a price to all that. So anyway, I mean, it sucks for you guys, and I hope it all irons out. This will probably be the last time this specific end buyer gets to do business with a lot of wholesalers in town once, people learn how they do business. So, but it's
I mean, it's very possible he's done it before. It's just terrible. It's just a terrible thing of business, and there's no place for people like that in this business. But it exists. It exists quite a bit. People get selfish and they get in the mindset of doing that, and it's like they just, my thing is this. That person's making money. This particular end buyer made an offer based on the terms that were presented to him. Nobody
Mm-hmm.
made him do it. There was other people interested in this property. He made an offer that he was willing to pay for this property. So with the whole thing blowing up and not being able to perform, and then trying to go around, go back to the seller, mind you, went back to the seller at $25,000 less than he was in contract for. Um, it is very unfortunate. Why even offer on the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why even go that way if that's your intent? And it makes no sense at all. You don't have to buy it. Nobody's making you do this deal, right? So
No.
you're doing it knowing that you're going to pay a premium on top. Um, and it's just frustrating to me that that these kind of things happen, that other people out there in this marketplace do this, and it makes it really tough.
Yep.
But that I've gotten squeezed on the back end before, where we've had to renegotiate, and that's kind of what happened here. Is there was a try to renegotiate situation, but we didn't go for it, and basically, everybody terminated the deal, and the earnest money was put up as collateral, and that was like they couldn't believe that was happening, and you have to know, like, that's your collateral in these deals, is your earnest money. I mean, there's a reason that there's non-refundable earnest money if you default on a wholesale deal, because it has to protect the middle person. And some people throw a fit about that when they see $5,000 earnest money due direct to the seller, or direct to the wholesaler. People throw a fit about that sometimes without knowing, but I mean, there's a lot of risk in there. There's a lot of risk on reputation, and that's probably one of the biggest things that stings more than anything, is just the reputation of the person that's direct to seller, of what can happen there, because you look like an idiot. You
Mm-hmm.
look like you don't know what you're doing when the deal blows up, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because you're putting your trust in an end buyer to perform and do what they say they're going to do. So, anyways, these things happen, and it's just something to be aware of. I mean, Mark talked about it a little bit in his podcast of spending $12,000 to $15,000 a month in marketing, and having to wholesale to basically offload some of those leads. He had too many leads, so he was trying to figure out how to make those leads become valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of touched on it just a tad, and I knew what he was getting at. But he goes, it's one thing to not only manage the negotiation with the seller in the contract, but then you're also dealing with an investor buyer that you're negotiating on that side with when you are the wholesaler.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
he's like, it's too many problems.
Yeah.
He's like,
Both
I don't like
sides.
it.
Yeah. So he keeps a lot of his and flips. And so, yeah, it's a good plug for, on Tuesday, we'll come out with our another Real Estate Heavyweights University. We're interviewing Mark Fuller. He's a flipper, used to be wholesales every once in a while, but mostly keeps his stuff here in Plano, Texas. He does a lot of business. He's got a lot of nuggets in that interview, and we would love for you to tune in for that. We're going to keep bringing you interviews of people that we work with that, have really got their business down, just old school real estate guys. And so if you can tune in for that, if you haven't listened to the interview with George Roddy, you've got to listen to that. Great stories there. And we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming to you on Fridays with as much market updates and information and news as we can, and try to just keep you going in the real estate business, especially here in DFW. If for some reason you have a house that you just can't even imagine putting onto the MLS because you can't sell it, it's not going to appraise. It's a hoarder house. It's got foundation issues, or even if it's great and you got to sell it super fast, please let us know. Tavis is out looking at houses all the time, putting offers in, trying to do deals. I'm finishing up with Mapleton, and I will be in the market really soon to try to do something else. And so please reach out to us. I'm Ashton Hines on Facebook, the Dallas Real Estate Guy on Instagram, where I worked this morning diligently early to get our YouTube channel up. And so we're working on getting those videos out there. And so you'll be able to find us all over the place. Tavis, you can find him on Facebook and Instagram at Tavis Westbrook, Travis without the R, Tavis Westbrook Designs, or Tavis Westbrook Designs. If you need help with designing a space, doing a renovation, you just want someone who's been in the business a long time to give you some tips on how you should, knock a wall down here, move this around here, knock out this little drop down, all that stuff. He's got all those tricks, and it looks awesome because they can do it on CAD. All the fancy Chip and Joanna stuff you see on TV, they can do that. And so they're really, really good. Reach out to him if you need any design work. And we will keep coming to you. Please tune in on Tuesday. And until then, we hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, guys.